We're live, Chase. The BYU Cougars, the basketball team, won a road game. They finally won a road game at Colorado. We recorded earlier today. We did the preview and everything. We were pretty darn close with our score predictions. We both predicted, a bigger win. BYU would cover the spread in this game and everything. Let's just say the first half wasn't as pretty. The second half was everything we thought we would see from this BYU team this season.
Yeah, it was like dream come to life of what you wanted from this BYU team. Like they were playing like to their full potential, and it was pretty glorious to see, honestly. It was like fun and exciting, and you're like, holy cow, you can't help but ask, like, what if? But there's still a lot of season left, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But tonight finally looked like BYU basketball. Finally looked like they were gelling, flowing, offensively, defensively. Everything came together, and it was awesome. It was actually really fun to watch, Carter. Like, fun basketball.
It was really fun in the second half. I want to start with the first half real quick because I'll be honest, it was looking grim. When watching this game, it was looking pretty grim. Colorado went up, I believe, 10 at one point, and then just such a shout out and credit to Richie Saunders, man. He willed this team back into this game and took a lead before halftime, and that momentum going into halftime carried into the second half. And whatever Kevin Young and this coaching staff said at halftime did wonders, because the tempo they played with, the ball movement, the free-flowing offense, we hadn't seen that since Central Arkansas this season. That it was phenomenal to watch. The ball was moving. It does help that threes were falling, but guess what? It opened up everything. Guys were driving, kicking out. Yegor was cooking like we know he can. 8.7 assists for Yegor tonight. It was just exactly what we needed to see in that second half tonight.
Absolutely. It kind of was what we talked about, what we needed to see in the preview, Carter, where we're like, we need to see them flowing and going up and down the court. You talked about Yegor controlling the tempo and the pace, which he absolutely did in that second half. He finally looked like himself. And then defensively, which we mentioned as well, that intensity in the second half was huge. I think at the end of the day, in total, it was like a 35-6 run. It ended up being something like that, which is absurd in any college basketball game, especially against a conference opponent. And a lot of that came down to defense as well. The intensity there, getting steals, forcing Colorado turnovers, keeping guys in front of them, and keeping them off the three-point line. But you said you wanted to talk about the first half first, so we can do that right now.
It'll be quick because the second half's the storyline of this game.
Yeah, there was a moment, when it's down 10 to take that timeout, and you're like, what are we doing? What, like, this is the breaking point. There was 2 paths in front of them, and it was like, you can either just roll over and die, and this is it, or you can figure out a way. And Richie Saunders says, I'm gonna freaking figure out a way. And shout out the entire team for responding, but it really was Richie, who I did pick to be MVP of this game. Not that that's anything important, but he absolutely was. And I think we're learning more and more he's the most pivotal part of this team. Doesn't mean he's necessarily the best player, but he is the most important player. Everything he brought today, the energy, it started on the defensive end and translated to a lot of points for him and an impressive stat sheet. But it was just the will to win, which is what we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks with this team and what they've kind of been lacking. And he was like, I'm just not going to lose. He looked at the team in front of him. He said, we're better than these guys. This cannot be happening. We cannot be playing like this. And he changed the entire tone of the basketball game. This basketball team, who knows, maybe this season, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that was a huge just moment. And it's a lot of that credit goes to Richie.
Absolutely. And he brings the toughness on this team. There's been a lot of questions floating around this BYU team. Do they have the toughness and the grit? I know, are they a soft team? And Richie is the one changing that narrative where he, like you said, took over. And you talked about it in the Utah game where it just felt like Utah wanted it more there. And tonight you could tell Richie wanted it more. And then everybody else, he led by example, and everybody else followed on this team. And then everything kind of came together, especially in that second half which we'll talk about right now. The tempo they played with, they are the slowest team in the Big 12 coming into tonight. That second half, the tempo they played with, this team is designed to play faster, Chase, and high tempo, fast-paced offense. Have Yegor going in transition, finding guys. He has the best vision in college basketball. There is a reason he has struggled this year and is still a top 10 pick in the NBA draft. That is how he needs to be used, because there's so much more space when you play a high-tempo offense, Chase, and then therefore Yegor can find all of these dudes. Those passes he was making in that second half, that's not even anything new that he can do. We've known he can do that. It's just the style of play was allowing him to do so.
It was, and it opened up everything for this BYU team. I don't think people realize, like, that kind of style of play and that momentum not only gets you better looks, more points, more layups, it just helped out every aspect of the game. They were rebounding better. They were making smarter decisions. They played defense better, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the first half, you saw all these, like, they jump on every pump fake. They were overhelping on the strong side. They couldn't throw in entry passes. All those things are still problems. But just when you get in the flow and you're working together in that chemistry and you're coalescing in a way that allows everything to feel honestly easy, and that looked that way the way they were shooting 45% from the three-point line, the way they were finding open guys, cutting to the basket like you and I have been begging for all season long, and it looked like a great basketball team there for those. I mean, honestly, the entire second half for the most part.
And once they picked up that tempo, Chase, you could feel everybody was getting into rhythm. Trevin Nell was knocking down threes. Mawit Mag was getting in layups and floaters. Richie was just on tonight. There's no doubt about that. Yegor was getting to the paint. I mean, everything was just free-flowing. It was actually smooth for once, and a lot of Big 12 play we've seen this year has been herky-jerky, kind of stagnant, and that was the opposite of what we saw in especially in the first 7 to 8 minutes of this second half tonight. And I texted you this during the game. I said, man, if you're this coaching staff and you're watching the game film of tonight, just watch those 8 minutes and say, that's what we need to do. We need to bottle that up and somehow have it go for 40 minutes on Saturday against Cincinnati and Provo, because that's what has to happen. That is the key for BYU to reach their highest potential this year, is to play that style of basketball, which we haven't seen at all in Big 12 play.
Not at all. It almost makes you want to, just if you were to be coaching this team, just be like, I'd throw out all these offensive sets, the half-court offense. Let's just try and get downhill all the time, every time, because
and that's what
it's
worked
when they're
last
at their
season.
best. Exactly. That's what worked last season. The whole philosophy was run and gun, put up as many threes as you can that are good looks, and get to the hoop. And that showed in a lot of ways. And it even shows in the box score a little bit, Karter. We noticed this is the first time in all of conference play there was that neither Kabakato or Foose were on the floor at the same time. They played those Boskovic minutes. They went with the undersized lineup, put him at 5. I'm not saying that like that's the reason it happened, but being able to have those guys to stretch the floor and go up and down, and you're not tied down to a post man who's good, or big man who's going to be posting up all the time, was huge. And Foose does a lot of things for this team. This wasn't his game today, and he didn't put up what he usually did, and they didn't need him to. And it was because of that free-flowing offense. They didn't have to sit in an offensive set at half court, let 20 seconds drain off the clock, force an entry pass to Foose, and then allow him to make the baby hook that he does 95% of the time. Now, it works a lot of time, and we love that move, but this was different, and BYU looked like a completely different team. No post-ups tonight. I mean, hardly any.
And I'm not saying the post-ups are entirely bad, but sometimes it stalls the offense and it just kind of stiffens things up a little bit and makes it a little stagnant. And tonight, without the post-ups, it just was fun basketball to watch. It was really fun. I mean, if you're a BYU fan watching, I mean, I was sitting there in that second half just smiling, watching and go, this is it. This is it right here. We're watching it. This is what it needs to be. Now, this is all with a giant fat caveat, because you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, because, look, this Colorado team came into tonight 0-6 in the Big 12. Did beat UConn and Danny Hurley, though. Just want that out there. Beat Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley lost to this 0-6, 0-7 Big 12 Colorado team. Dan Hurley, UConn coach, lost to this team. Just want that out there.
You see what he said today, Carter?
I did see what Dan Hurley said today. For people that don't know, I also do another podcast or whatever, do college basketball stuff. I'm a big-time anti-Dan Hurley guy. I do not like Dan Hurley. I think he's a phenomenal coach, clearly, probably the best in college basketball. Do not like Dan Hurley at all. And so just had to put that out there. That Dan Hurley on a neutral court did lose to this Colorado team that is now 0-7 in the Big 12. Just putting that out there. But anyhow, Colorado, you don't want it to be like the Oklahoma State game. But to be honest, I felt this was a little different than what we saw in the Oklahoma State game because BYU, once they took that lead in the second half, they really never looked back.
They didn't, and they did it on the road, and they didn't need the crowd to hype them up. There was like 3,000 people in that gym, and maybe that was
church ball,
an advantage for them. It was church ball, man. It's what they're used to. It's what they're feeling. And I do want to be with you, Carter, and say that like I don't want to get too excited, but you gotta be excited about the sample size you saw because this is the first time we have any evidence in conference play that this is the team that they can be, and you and I have seen it, and maybe there's some people who listen or they're like, "What are you guys talking about?" This is what we're talking about. This is the potential of this team, and it's been there, and it was there against Florida A&M and a couple of these schools that they got to tune up against in non-conference, but to see it in conference play is huge. What I really am looking forward to is Saturday to see if this is legit or not, and then we can start to get really excited. But tonight is a huge step forward. It's what they needed, right? And I think there was a microcosm there of there even was like a setback. You had to come back from what we talked about, being down 10 to the Colorado team who they wanted to win. They hadn't won a game in conference play, right? They're at home. They want to get this dub, and BYU had to bounce back. They did, and then some, and then absolutely took off.
Yeah, and like we're not going to do the whole tournament resume thing. We talked about that earlier on the preview. We're not going to break down their tournament resume and talk about whether the bubble. They got to win a few more games first before we can talk about that again. But the number one thing we talked about coming into tonight and the last few games, honestly, is this is a great chance as a confidence builder, and I think tonight was the number one thing they needed in that second half right there to get those guys going. Unfortunately, like guys like Dallin and Cannon didn't have great games, but honestly, I really wanted to just see it out of Yegor. I think most BYU fans too wanted to as well, just see Yegor and see a lineup Kevin Young can truly trust in a game, to be honest. And it felt like the starting lineup was that lineup he felt like he could trust a lot of times, move out the big men sometimes, and then run with those four players. Yeah,
it really worked. Well, what's interesting is 9 guys got over 10 minutes in this game tonight. And that's not even including Mihailo Boskovic, who feels like he almost played more than that, but he didn't. But he was a big part of that catalyst of changing up the offense and switching it around. It's huge for the confidence. I don't see how tonight could have really gone any better for BYU. You even had, like, if you want to twist it and be like, you had a moment where they had to rally together and come back, and then they really found the flow offensively. They found it. I mean, that was just been the biggest thorn in their side, and they've been thinking about it. They've been worrying about it. This is exactly what they needed to see. And going into practices this week, heading into a big matchup with Cincinnati, you just can hope that they, like you said, bottle up that offense, build off of it, chase that feeling, and keep it rolling.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Great win. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll answer some Twitter questions. All right, Chase, let's answer some Twitter questions. Let's start off here. Let's go with the old tried and true at Jack_Carpenter5, the legend himself. Shocked it wasn't a bigger storyline that Travis Hunter was ducking Yegor, ... Some Heisman winner. Does BYU cater enough to guys with NBA ceilings while playing team ball? Should we sacrifice quote-unquote team ball to develop future NBA players? Wondering what y'all think. And he also put in a Trevin Nell meme with Stephen A. Smith in the comments as well. Chase, you want to answer that one?
Sure. I think it's a good question, Jack. I think you kind of can see your answer in tonight's performance compared to the rest of conference play. And I guess the question is, what do you want? Do you want, as a BYU fan, draft picks? Do you want the prestige of just sending guys to the league, or do you want to win, or do you want to do both? I think there's ways to do all three options there. BYU plays better when they play team ball. They play better when they share it. But they do have guys that do stand out. Jaeger with his passing, Richie scoring, but he does that not individually. Richie's points, you can look at all of them. A couple of them were drives into floaters. He loves to take that baseline drive there, right? Most of it, though, catch and shoot threes or coming off of cuts and getting those hustle points. And Jaeger was finding the right guys. So I don't know about like sacrificing time for NBA talent. I know that most people, when they think of that, probably think of Cannon, and the way the season's gone for him hasn't been ideal. And what his future holds is, I think, up in the air right now. But look, I think everyone looks better with team ball. Everyone. And maybe some players tonight who didn't even look, who you're like, look at the stats, you're like, oh, I thought they did even better. That's because everyone looked good. Everyone looked good when everyone's playing together and the things are moving. So at the end of the day, team ball is the way to go in basketball. It's how you win. And I think BYU should be more conservative winning than they are with draft picks. I think if you win, Carter, the picks will come, the players will come, and the rest will fall into place, right?
Look at Kentucky. Devin Booker came off the bench at Kentucky. Like, multiple guys were coming off the bench and still one and done guys at Kentucky. And a lot of those Kentucky teams weren't the ideal ball movement teams. I mean, there's a lot of ISO ball and stuff in there, but they're working with guys like Anthony Davis more and more. And BYU will have their Anthony Davis next year with AJ DeBanza. But I think I think it's clear. I mean, you play team ball, and also playing, more ISO-centric basketball isn't going to benefit guys like Cannon and Jaeger whatsoever, because look, matter of fact is they're not ISO guys, and Jaeger doesn't want to shoot. Jaeger wants to pass the ball. He's inherently an unselfish player and wants to get others involved, and that's where he excels at, and that's what he wants to do. And Cannon, the best way he's going to be able to get his shots off and look his best is coming off screens, catch and shoot, because we saw a couple times tonight he sometimes gets a little too – his decision-making isn't quite there whenever he gets in ISO situations. It's dance, step back three. And look, he's going to mature and get older, and he's going to figure that game out a little bit more. He's got to, put on some weight and get to the basket a little bit more, and that'll come. But I think playing team basketball would help him even more. And sometimes it gets a little slow and stagnant, and sometimes I feel bad for him too, because there's certain times with the offense when he's in the game where everybody's just kind of standing around. It's like, all right, Cannon, take over. And I don't think that's necessarily his strong suit at the moment.
No, you lift each other up on a basketball team. Everyone remembers the best basketball team they ever played on, and and it's the same for everyone. It wasn't like, oh, we had this one cat who dropped 40 a game. It was, we all played together. We shared the ball like crazy. Like, that's just how it goes. It's just that is basketball. Go back and watch one of these games where they lost. Go watch TCU. Don't watch Houston. That was just, it was bad in every aspect. Go watch a couple of these games they lost and tell me which ones was better. They've been running this stagnant NBA style ISO offense. It just hasn't worked. No one's looked good, right? People were wondering whether Jaeger was who he said he was. And that was us trying to make him, BYU trying to make him look like an NBA style player and do it all himself. Now all of a sudden we play. I gotta stop saying we. BYU plays team ball, and Jaeger all of a sudden is like, he's right back up the draft boards, and we start to see what he's capable of. So I think it's a great question, Jack. It's a great point.
Yeah, great question. And also, one more thing to add is you kind of alluded to it, talking about playing on your favorite basketball teams growing up and everything. And it's like when you go play pickup, you're on a team with one ball hog who's shooting all the time, and then all of a sudden you get the ball right away. You're like, well, I've barely touched the ball, and then they expect you to shoot, and you're like, I'm stiff. I'm not in rhythm. I don't really necessarily want to shoot. And it's just not a fun way to play basketball. And it's also just flat out not the right way, and it's not winning basketball. And whenever everyone's getting their hands on the ball and everyone's moving and everyone's working for each other, guess what? You really don't care if you score 2, 4 points or 15, 16 points. It's all about just winning and being involved. And if everybody's able to be involved in this free-flowing style offense where it's high tempo and everyone's moving, that's the best way to play. So I think we nailed that question. Let's move on. Shout out Clark at Clarkster Stew. Just felt good to finally crush a team we were supposed to crush. Richie is a hooper. Couldn't have said it better myself. Felt great. Just that's exactly what they needed. The second BYU took that lead in the second half, there was never a doubt in your mind the way they were playing where you go, oh, Colorado might creep back into this. No, it was never a doubt.
He really wasn't, and it does feel good. It's just like to do what you're supposed to do. And BYU hasn't done that. And it's just been frustrating watching them lately because you're just like, there's just something here that's not happening. It's not how it happened. It always feels good. And Richie is a hooper. Tom Crean says he's going to play in the NBA, Carter.
I like Tom Crean on the broadcast tonight, Chase. And
he was good.
Look, I don't like dissing commentators a lot of the time because that is a hard job. It's a very hard job. But some of these BYU games lately have not had the most exciting commentators. That they haven't brought the energy. It's felt more like a funeral on a lot of these. Now we've been in the building for home games, so we can't speak to those, but it's mainly these road games. Tom Crean tonight on ESPNU. I had a lot of fun listening to Tom.
I had a lot of fun. I love the way he calls it. He calls it like a coach.
Yeah.
He almost feels like he wants to go out and give advice during timeouts. I think he would if he was allowed.
Yeah. Little Caesars guy, too, by the way. Pizza.
Pizza.
I love it. Let's. You want to read a question real quick?
Yeah, let's go with Alex Beach at abeach319. BYU still feels inconsistent, but found a really good groove in the second half. Here's hoping they can take that momentum into Saturday. Would love to see Cannon get more opportunities. Any thoughts on how he can get back to his form earlier in the year? Carter.
We kind of nailed a lot of that question already. But kind of repeating it real quick. But yeah, I hope they can bottle that up and bring it Saturday to Cincinnati, because Cincinnati tonight lost to Texas Tech by double digits. They're coming to Provo. They're hungry. They're desperate for a win. So it's going to be a great game on Saturday. Can't wait to be there. But then the second part of the question, would love to see Cannon get more opportunities. Any thoughts on how he can get back to his form earlier in the year? I think it's just he's got to see him go in. He's got to have one game where it's just like when a shooter just sees a layup go in or a free throw go in. It's like, okay, just build that confidence up slowly but surely. And I would just like to see him more in situations where he's not having to make a lot of decisions or do too much with the ball, do too much more than he's comfortable with. Because I made this comparison a couple episodes ago, but it's like he reminds me a lot of Andrew Wiggins on Golden State, Chase, where it's when Andrew Wiggins is in a situation where it's very simple, where he doesn't have to hesitate to make the decision on the court. He looks special. He can make that jump shot. He can make almost any shot on the court. He can drive. He's uber athletic. He's got super lanky and everything. And I think that's where Cannon can be his best, and I think that's where he can shine and build his confidence back up.
I 100% agree. As far as like if I'm scheming for Cannon right now, and this is my goal, which I don't know if that is. I think BYU is like, they want to win. Their goal is to win. So I don't know if their goal is to just get Cannon more looks. If I was to, I would tell Cannon, and I would kind of design some things to exploit these mismatches he gets. Because after BYU's action, almost everyone on the court is guarding someone different than when they started it. I think Cannon is a huge mismatch with his size and length. He can get, a 6'2" white point guard on him. And you're just like, okay, Cannon, like now cook. Now you can go one-on-one here because we have a legitimate mismatch. It's the same idea of having a mismatch in the post when you get a point guard down there on Foose. Like Cannon at the wing, go to work. But that work needs to be, Carter, and this is the point I'm getting to, go into the basket. I know, we sound like we're 55 with how much we incessantly say this. Go to the hoop, Cannon. Like you have size, you have length, go to the basket.
And that was a big key tonight as well. We talked about that coming in, where Colorado is very susceptible to people getting in the driving lanes and being able to kick it out or just, score at will on drives against them. And that's what started opening up, and Richie getting to the basket tonight was huge. And Cannon, that's what he needs to do as well. Let's move on. Nathaniel Milligan at Nathaniel_MILLI. I would have almost preferred a close game to see if we could win it, but Colorado couldn't keep up when our field goal percentage returned to the mean in the second half. Hot takes. Real quick, I'll answer that one before I get into that real quick. Now, be careful what you wish for, Nathaniel, because I said that before the TCU game, and I got burned. So I do want to see that, though, and I think Saturdays is when we see that, because Cincinnati's a talented team, and that's going to be a dogfight kind of game, and I think that's when we can see, okay, can BYU win these close games, especially at home?
Absolutely. I see what you're saying here, Nathan, or Nathaniel. Whichever you go by, because you do want to see BYU get that practice in the close situations, because they've lost everyone this season,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think for this team, with how poor Colorado is, being the dead bottom last of the conference, I think we needed to see BYU take care of business. But
yeah,
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And then second part of his tweet, hot takes. Dallin should stop trying to make Yegor level passes. Moet overcommits on one-on-ones, and Cannon should have a longer leash. A lot of Cannon love in the comments today. Shout out.
People love Cannon.
Yeah, I can't. No, I mean, I don't. I'm with them. But yeah, a lot of Cannon love. I love it.
Should we rate these hot takes? Should we rate these hot takes real quick? You want to give them a boom or a doom, Karter?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you go first. I'll let you take care of this one. Dallin should stop trying to make Yegor level passes. Boom or doom? Hot take.
I'm gonna give him a soft boom. Boom.
Soft boom.
Soft boom.
You kind of like it.
Boom. I kind of like it. I think Dallin's alleyway, and he really hasn't been we've seen glimpses. We really haven't seen the Dallin of last year yet. But in that Utah game especially, he was making incredible passes that weren't what you would call flashy, but they were just solid and exactly what you wanted in that moment.
Crafty, smart. Gym rat.
He was making these really good passes. Yegor level passes with the vision that he has is the really fun, pretty between the legs, right? The whipping it down the court kind of thing. And so I understand this hot take. Dallin needs to play within himself, and he has the ability to make just awesome passes. But Yegor level, and I think this is what Nathaniel means by this, is those crazy ones that you kind of look at and you'd be like, oh, that's different, that's special. But Dallin can make incredible passes in his own right.
Yeah, for sure. I think the main thing is you just don't want a guy like Dallin trying to do too much on the court and this is like it is for anybody in college, and especially in all levels of basketball. You don't want him doing too much on the court, and then there's certain games Dallin has it, and that's when it's, when he has it. Like Kansas of last year in Allen Fieldhouse, he just had it. He had it in that game, and sometimes you just don't, and you just got to stay within your game and let the game come to you a little bit more. So kind of like that take. Moet overcommits on one-on-ones.
I'm gonna give that a doom. I know these are no offense, we're just having fun, but I'd rather have Moet go absolutely bonkers crazy on one-on-ones. Is he talking about defensively, you think, or offensively?
I think defensively.
I assume so. If we're wrong, you can feel free to let us know, Nathaniel, but I'd rather have someone be over-aggressive on defense any day of the week than just soft and sit around. Sure, he picks up fouls, but I think he sets the tone for the team, brings energy that they very much need on the defensive end, to be honest.
Yeah, and then Cannon should have a longer leash.
I'm going to say doom again. Soft doom on this one. I think BYU needs to win. I don't know if Cannon's having a longer leash is going to accomplish that. I think what we just saw will accomplish that.
Yeah, because I think it's tough because in the long term, you're thinking, well, you want him to have that longer leash because you want him to be a successful player here at BYU for a long time and everything. And he's got to at some point he's got to get this confidence, but it's really tough to do that when you're in must-win situations come mid-January in conference play already.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, if I was going to scheme for Cannon, right, I'd let him take advantage of these one-on-one matchups and do these things. But if I'm the coach of this team, I'm just thinking, what's our best chance to win right now? What is our best chance to win right now?
All right, one more question. Read it to me, Chase.
All right, this is from Elijah Bond. Any relation to Karter Bond?
Some are saying.
At Eli Bond. how would you describe KY's offense, and have you, excuse me. Sorry, this tripped me up. I'm assuming he says, have you observed any,
Yeah, that's what we're
there we
going
go.
for.
Have you observed any shifts throughout the season? Is his NBA style offense only working on lesser opponents?
That's an elite question.
Elite question.
That is an elite question.
It's for you. It's for you. You guys share last name.
That's an elite question. We'll find out. That's a lame duck answer, but I mean, we'll find out more on Saturday in Cincinnati. But as of now, it's hard to disagree with that take right now, is that it works against lesser opponents. But I feel like tonight, Chase, against Colorado, I feel like it wasn't that same offense we've seen. It wasn't that same NBA-style offense. In the Oklahoma State game, I still think it was a little bit. But tonight, it felt different. And watching the game, we talked about it a million times. I don't need to repeat it. But I think tonight just felt a little bit different. But to be honest, that take right now, it's probably fair.
It's probably fair. Yeah. If I was to describe KY's offense, I'd probably say very ball handler heavy, lots of pick and roll at the top of the key, heavy on, it relies a lot on a guy like a point guard, like, I don't want to say because everyone says it, but like Chris Paul, who he was literally drawing up offenses for, who is one of the greatest point guards of all time, who can see everything, who can absolutely just masterfully like play chess on the basketball court. His offense is designed for someone like that. He has someone who's in the makings and in the same like mold as a guy who can do that in Yegor Demon, and I think that was the philosophy behind it. But I think we are seeing, and the shifts that you're asking about, Elijah, are more towards getting to the 3-point line and then getting to the basket and letting everything kind of flow from there.
Are you wait? So you're saying Yegor Demon is Chris Paul, the next Chris Paul?
That's exactly what I'm saying, especially in body type and like style of play,
size as well.
Yeah,
both went to Wake Forest somehow. Yeah. I love it. All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
Nothing else. Excited for the Bearcats Saturday. We're really going to see what this team is made of. I mean, we said that a bunch of times, but you've had your good, you've had your bad. Now who are you? Yeah,
we'll find out Saturday after the Cincinnati game. I'll tweet out a thing. We might be going live after the game after Cincinnati, depending on the result. Might be going live, little interactive chat with the Twitter crowd. So we'll see what's going on there. So make sure to follow at Church Ball Pod on everything. Hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on the Field of 68 Podcast Network YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and check out all the other Field of 68 stuff. Ton of great stuff on there as well. At Karter BA, at Chase_Rogers0. I know, force a habit right there. At Church Ball Pod on everything. Hit that subscribe button. We'll be back for a Cincinnati preview. We'll see y'all then.